So welcome to Loft Media, and as you know, I certainly have no love for the Labor Party of Queensland, the ALP. I call it the Australian Lying Party now. They are unbelievable. So let me just run through a little bit of what's been happening that I've seen going on while the biggest con in the world that's gone on over this COVID stuff. And got to be careful with the words, otherwise we could be censored out. But you certainly know which side of the fence I sit on. I don't trust the government, as I have made that claim many times through Loft Media. So I'm particularly bringing to light, in case you've missed it, some of the things that have been happening to this crooked ALP government of Queensland. Oh my, you think things might have been bad in Joe Bjelke-Petersen's time. He looks like an angel compared to what's been going on with all these ministers in the Queensland Labor government, from the Premier down. So let's just point out some of the things that have been going on. Just as a bit of a backdrop, so the dictatorships that are now surfacing because democracy is really struggling. The dictatorships and the power within people is going to their heads, and they don't really concern themselves about you and I. They're no longer servants of the public. Bureaucracy is no longer a servant of the public. They are a dictator, tyrannical dictators of the public. And to just get a bit of a foretaste of what's going on there, you've only got to look at Canada. Now, one of the people that I get my research from, that I look up, is Corey Bernardi. I really like his common sense approach through. He's been in government, so he knows what goes on behind the scenes, but also he's just astute. So we look at Canada. President there, or Prime Minister there, Trudeau, he got captured by the truckies over there. Well, then he just stood his ground and turned on the truckies unbelievably, and basically closed truckies' bank accounts to take control of the situation there. So people have stood up in defiance to the many laws and mandates within Canada, and then the Premier moves, the Prime Minister then moves and says, well, I'm going to close your bank accounts. It is unbelievable to where we are in history that one man has so much power. We've seen it in Victoria, where the tyrant dictator Dan Andrews rules as a communist, as a socialist, and this is what's proceeding right around the world as we speak. The one world government. We're being controlled more by other people in other parts of the world. And many of them, I believe, are the rich elite who are just making the rules for the masses. So thank you to Corey Bernardi for bringing that up about the tyrant and the tyranny that's going on in Canada. And if you think it's going on over there, only over there, it's not. It's in many countries around the world. Another man that I really appreciate and his straightforwardness is George Christensen. And he's a federal member who's apparently not standing in this next election. But he's stood up, and he's got a newsletter that's called Nation First, and I'd encourage people to read it and share it with others. He's also right on the money as far as I'm concerned. He's about defending our sovereignty and our democracy. So personal sovereignty and the democracy that we hopefully still live in. It's the free way of life that we should be living in, which is what we were used to here in Australia and in Queensland. He's written an article on March the 15th, go back to Solzhenitsyn. And when I was in prison, I read the book about Solzhenitsyn and how Russia deals with their citizens. Stalin and Lenin, I mean, they were demonic dictators. They really made Hitler look like a bit of a fairy compared to those. Stalin and Lenin killed millions, murdered millions of the fellow citizens of Russia. And now, as time's roll on, we've got another madman in the seat over there, Putin. So, I mean, it looks like Russia hasn't learnt lessons from its history. But George Christian sent in his newsletter, and he does great little 1-minute snaps as well, which I'd encourage you to look at. He's been a big push for the Queenslanders to join the convoy to Brisbane Parliament House, which is happening as we speak now. He believes in COVID madness, so it's basically, and there's a great quote from Solzhenitsyn he's got in this latest newsletter. Because he spoke truth to power and refused to live by the lie. So you only have power over people as long as you don't take everything away from them. But when you've robbed a man of everything, he no longer is in your power. He's free again. And that's what happened to Solzhenitsyn. He went to jail. He lost everything. But once again, he lived to tell the story. And unfortunately, a lot of Russians have probably don't know the story of their history. He was an Orthodox Christian and a famous dissident in communist Russia. He spent 8 years in a gulag and the rest in exile from his home country in America. Well worth reading. I mean, the man was unbelievable in what he went through. So Russia, have they learnt the lesson? Wait and see. The red country, which is like the red Victoria, and if our local member Bruce Saunders had his way, it'd be the red Queensland as well. This is the same type of bullying. It's even more than bullying. It's just destroying people's lives, that some people who are members of Parliament are supposed to serve the community rather than bully the community. So, and once again, they just lie. They're great liars, and I say that categorically. I know that Bruce, one of his strengths is his ability to lie. He converts the truth to a lie and the lies to a truth. And the times we're living in, where people of so-called influence, if you allow them to influence your life, they just flood you with lies in their own way, which is always taking away your liberty. And blind Freddie can see that. So I get now into a bit more of I'll call it the corruption in the Queensland government, which anybody can see these days. The Triple C boss, Mr. McSporran, he's resigned. We've known all these people that have resigned. There's the parliamentary CCC has had an inquest into the Triple C. There's more inquiries. There's more things are coming out. Lack of integrity, lack of transparency. It goes on and on and on. And the Premier is like Captain Schultz. I see nothing. I see nothing. And she's just bouncing all these things off as it's just normal in the running of government. Well, it is in Queensland. It's normal. Queensland ALP. It is normal. You just take no notice of people who should know. I'm reading an article now from headed up by. This article was done by Jessica Marzalek and Jack Mackay in the Courier Mail, 9th of March this year. You have too much influence, says the Auditor General's independent push. The man responsible for marking the performance of the Palaszczuk government is pushing for law changes to bolster his independence amid concerns the government holds too much power over his work. So here's the Auditor General, is supposed to be the person who sits independently and looks at the finances of Queensland. He's found that he's been under the pump. I mean, and the Triple C says change reports, they go to the minister and the minister says change this, change that. I've said for a long time, just like the figures on the Fraser Coast Regional Council were a load of hogwash, and we found $170 million when 3,000 journal entries had to be re-entered that had been going on over the years. It's no different, I believe, in the Queensland Auditing Department, and the dodginess of the figures that are coming out. When the Auditor General is just saying he's concerned about his independence, and he's pushing for changes. So he wants to provide assurance to Parliament, and it's critical to preserve our independence. Will he be heard by the Parliament of Queensland? I don't think so. They just keep marching on and making up their game as they go. And spending $1 billion here, billions there, pull down a damn wall, who cares? 600 million here, it's a faulty damn wall. Anyway, he's so that's the Auditor General. That's a person of significance, and I'm finding that there's many of the people who are people of integrity within the Queensland government are generally the older ones now, as the younger ones just buckle under the overpowering of the ministers concerned, and also the Premier. So good on you, Mr. Worrell. Keep banging the drum. People are listening, and one day these people in the Queensland Labor Party, Queensland Lying Party, will be held to account. They will be held to account, and justice will prevail at some stage in the future. And these people will not be smiling. Another article, I love this one in the Courier Mail, March the 12th. Court of Comrades. So I've said for a long time that the court system and the justice system in Queensland is definitely sways towards deals being done in the back rooms. Now, if you think the courts in Queensland is where justice prevails, you are living in La La Land. As this article written by Peter Gleeson, doesn't mind calling him out either. Peter Gleeson, Queensland Labor has repeatedly handed plum judicial postings, including Supreme Court appointments, to legal figures with strong links to the party, including spouses and close friends. See, it's jobs for the boys. If you're in the Queensland Labor Party, join up and your spouse will get a job, you'll get a job, everyone gets a job. Doesn't matter about your qualifications or whether you've got integrity. But if you're a mate of some of the crooks who are in here, well, crooks hang around crooks, and that's what's happened to the Queensland justice system. And this one is an astounding. Some of the claims in here by Peter Gleeson the appointments include Bernadette Callaghan, a one-time ALP Senate candidate accused of lenient sentencing while a magistrate, to lead a panel which helps pick new magistrates. So the selection of barrister, this is a good one, Kerry Malafont, an ALP donor and the wife of MP Peter Russo, and who provided legal advice on private emails involving Anastasia Palaszczuk, as a Supreme Court judge, is also in the dossier. The government said all appointments were merit-based, and it used an independent panel to help choose. Let me tell you, these independent panels that choose these things are all mates of the mates. Because Labor's been in for so long in Queensland, they've set it all up. It's just generational mates of mates. But that particular one, Kerry Malice, she's the wife of MP Peter Russo. Now, what many Labor people do, they hold on to their maiden names so it doesn't link with the married name these days. So MP Peter Russo's wife is Kerry Malice. And just to keep you in the picture as to the sort of pays that these judges get, and the article is very extensive. I'll hold that up. The camera can scan all that. See that? Yep. So it's got all the links of who's married to who, and who's a friend of, and all this sort of stuff. But Kerry Malice, I think I read where, and I'll just find that. Something like a pay is $400,000 a year, which is more than what the Premier gets. Here it is. A magistrate earns $368,000 a year until retirement age at 70, when superannuation will be paid at 60% of that salary, while Supreme Court judges are paid $433,012 a year and enjoy perks including a jurisprudence allowance of $35,000, which they attend overseas legal conferences. This is it's nearly $500,000 a year that these people get. No wonder. And Queensland doesn't balance the books. I mean, you've got Mr. Dick is still the treasurer. I don't know much of his legal accounting qualifications, but it doesn't make any difference in Queensland. Strive your way to the top, get your pay, and then later on move out into some cushy shorter job. But in the meantime, give your wife a job as well. So and then we've got the list goes on. The separation of powers doctrine centres on the separation of legislature, the executive and the judiciary. While no one is suggesting these Labor connections affected any judicial decision making, even the perception that the lines could be blurred is a cause for concern. That was the finish of his article. But when you read the whole article, it's amazing. Now that's the judiciary. So that's the court. That's the court system, the court of comrades. The comrades is communist, socialist, and no different here in Maryborough with our local member Bruce Saunders and his comrades and the jobs that Bruce has lined up for his followers. And then I'll just get down to this one as Jackie Trad. Jackie Trad was the Minister for Local Government when I was the Mayor of the Fraser Coast. Let's just say I didn't get on well with her, and neither did I get on well with Frankie Carroll, who was the Director General of Local Government. And if you want to do your own research on both these two, Frankie Carroll is now out of the state. He's in Victoria. He's gone down there and picked up a job, I think, before it all hits the fan here in Queensland. But an article here, the judge lifts the lid on Trad's sensitive bid to keep the CCC report secret. The LNP in Queensland has been going after Jackie Trad in particular, and there's the secret report that has got heaps of disclosures in it, which Jackie Trad has basically gone to the Supreme Court and says the LNP can't disclose it in Parliament. The LNP, to their merit, have keep pushing it, and And some of the details of that report have come out. And so therefore the judge now has said the politically sensitive matter has been lifted by Supreme Court Justice Martin Burns on Thursday after a parliamentary privilege row erupted late last month and some media reporting of the case. It goes on. Attorney General Shannon Fentinan had as recently as Wednesday pointed to the non-publication order to avoid answering questions from the opposition in Parliament about whether she'd signed off on legal indemnity to cover Ms Tradd's court costs. So these people who are open and transparent, here's the Attorney General, supposed to be bipartisan really in that role, but you only get the job in Labor unless you're red. You're a red person and do as you're told. So she's the Attorney General and she refuses to answer questions about whether Tradd's legal bill's being paid by the government. Well, lo and behold, so that report was on the 18th of March. And lo and behold, taxpayers' fund are being used to pay Tradd's Supreme Court costs. So here we just see it's a great big bucket of money for all the ex-ministers when they get into a spot of trouble. I mean, Jackie Tradd was the one who rang the boss of the Triple C on a Sunday night while he was having his barbecue and just ran that project past him. My husband bought a house that's in the Cross River Rail path. What do you think of that? And you know, probably while turning the sausages, Mr. McSporran said, no, that'd be okay. You'll be right. You'll get away with that one. So here we go. So Mr. McSporran's no longer there. He's resigned - sacked from the Triple C, and so we've still got Jackie Tradd who's trying to cover, and she doesn't want that report coming out. I hope that the LNP continues to persevere and the whole report comes out, because that report, I hope that it might include something about my history on the Fraser Coast Regional Council. Apparently it has a hit list of people that the ALP were after on the conservative side of things. And we'll wait and see what else is in that report. But her bills are being now paid by the Queensland government because the Premier has now said, oh yes, she is now. So here's the Attorney General will not answer the question. The Premier then steps up 2 days later after the report comes out. Oh yeah, the legal fees, we won't know what they'll be, but they'll be at a later date. These costs aren't worked out until the end of the court case. So here we go. So there's people involved in the court case. The legal people just keep milking the taxpayers' funds. They know the truth, but do they stand for it, and does someone blow the trumpet? No, they don't. So Jared Jelke from the LNP, I mean, I just like him. He just keeps batting away and batting away. He also talks of Frankie Carroll. Now, Jackie Tradd was the Minister for Local Government. Frankie Carroll was the Director General of Local Government. Frankie Carroll then got another job as after Tradd got moved sideways, and then Mark Ferner became the Director General of Local Government. Frankie Carroll then moved to the side and he was installed as the Under-Treasurer. So he went straight into the Treasury Department and the Under-Treasurer in 2019. And apparently it is alleged that Jackie Tradd overruled the decision of the people who were deciding who the Under-Secretary was to be, and she promoted apparently and allegedly Frankie Carroll for the job. So Frankie Carroll moves up and up, and these people are on $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a year. It's just amazing stuff. And of course the Queensland Labor Party will reluctantly bring these things forward. So it's requiring the LNP to speak of them in Parliament and then to try to get media to bring it out to the public's notice. So I'll just end around that subject. We need to be vigilant here in Queensland and just don't take what the mainstream media is feeding. We need to be alert, and we need to be vocal and share it. When we think things are wrong, we do need to share it within the community and not be scared of the bullying that the likes of a Bruce Saunders or the ministers in the Queensland lying Labor Party come up with. Just hold your ground on truth, because the truth sets you free. Till next time, stay free.